Welcome back to part 3 of the Sculpting the Monster series. This is a series aimed at beginners where we go over the basics of Zbrush while sculpting something. So in this case, we have this little egg guy. We took a sphere, we sculpted a face, we modified the body, we used selections to pull out like a shell, and now we're going to jump into making some modifications to this. So like one thing you want to do in sculpting is like checking the angles. So like the front angle looks kind of weird because it's like this is sticking out here and then this is not sticking out there. So BMV for the move tool. What I'm going to do is make the brush pretty big. I'm going to push this out somewhat and make this a little bit more egg shaped towards the top. Alright, so now we have, let's push that down a little bit. So now this sticks out a little bit further. So what I want to do is hit BDS for damn standard and then click on the alpha. And what changing this will do, so right now the alpha has this like space around it. So when I sculpt with this, you can see it like kind of pulls in more stuff. But if you use an alpha that's a more fine point, when you sculpt, it's more like scratches now. Like it's more like, it's a more precise chisel, essentially. So what I want to do is go through and just kind of chisel in this seam here. So there's like a transition between the inside and the outside, like of this egg. So that when we actually paint this, because I am going to show painting this in Substance Painter, we're going to have a transition between the two shapes to kind of make use of. So I'm just going through and sculpting in the sections here. So what I did, BDS, or you can just tap on this and just go to damn standard, which is right here, and then changing the alpha to one of these. So it comes to a more finer point, and then we're just sculpting in this here, the shell. So where the shell connects, you can see there it's kind of smooth. We want it like rough and harsh. We want like a nice sharp transition there to kind of differentiate the two from each other. So let's do that for the bottom half now. And we're still pretty low res in terms of like polys. Like this is still reasonably low res. Now this wouldn't be like game ready or anything like that. This still needs to be re-topologized, which is when you create a new version of the model that has the same shape but much less poly count, much lower poly count. All right, so we have that done, and now let's sculpt in some of the facial details. So let's move this a little bit, this light. Let's get some nostrils in there. And then let's get parts of the mouth refined. So just like how we did with the shell. And I can do this for like the lips or something. Like that. Then we get the eye sockets. Maybe some brows. And then you can hold Alt to push out parts of it to make it sharper. So if I wanted to make like the nose sharper, I could do that. One thing I will do, hit BCB, change the alpha to alpha 6 so it's smoother. Then sculpt up some things that are kind of low, like the nose here. Like this part should be up further. There should be more mass there. I can sculpt in using Alt. An alternate way of getting these edges would be to use clay buildup and like sculpting the edges in like this. And one thing I do want to do is start to create some shapes on the sides for variety, because right now the sides are just really plain. So we can just like sculpt in some like little forms. Because it's like an egg creature, so it's not necessarily... Like, parts of the face should look like a face to some degree, but, like, the sides can have some different little texture for, like, some kind of material for whatever this thing is made out of. I do have a cool idea that I'm going to save for the end, where I'm going to show turning this into something else, but for now, it's just going to be an egg. Dude. So I'm just sculpting in... holding Alt. With symmetry on. Kind of want it to have like a mouth. Alright, so let's do this. Let's go down to geometry, down to Dynamesh. Let's increase the resolution to 500. Let's see how many polys we get. All right, we're at 1 mil. That's probably too much, so we don't want to do that high. Let's try 300. 400K, that's decent. So 400K will get you a resolution that looks kind of like this for this object. That's good enough for where we're at, because we're still blocking in and adding basic shapes. But now we just have more detail for like some of these edges, which is nice. And then we can refine them a little bit better and like sculpt into the shell and start adding details. But we're still adding in our large details. So let's finish those first before we go any more detailed than this. So you can just kind of sculpt in some shapes and like blend them in. So right now I'm just sculpting with the clay buildup, brush alpha 6. So I'll show that, it's right there. Still sculpting with symmetry on. You can turn symmetry off. You don't have to always have symmetry on. You can turn it off to like sculpt details without symmetry. So that if you want like one side of the face to look a certain way or to make the details different, that's something you can do. It will be harder to retopologize your model without symmetry, meaning that if you actually go ahead and like reduce the resolution without symmetry, it's much harder. So now I'm going to reduce the brush size using the brackets and then hold in Alt to start chiseling in some more fine details, kind of similar to the eyes and like the stuff up here, to kind of like match that. So there's like these weird like crevices that are kind of like spooky. I'll try to connect some of them, but not all of them. All right, so we have this result right now. I think the face is starting to look better and better. There's definitely, let's fix the nose a little bit. So right now the nose is still a little bit too small in some areas. So like this should be bigger. This part's usually bigger. This isn't really correct, like in terms of anatomy, but this is like an egg, so we can kind of get away with that. We can build this up a little bit. And build this up, now it looks more correct. Because this part sticks out more in terms of like how the face is. So let's do BMV for move brush. Let's push this in a little bit. It's kind of like this part here that sticks in, and then this part sticks out, like the brow. So that's something good to know. We can push this up so it kind of peaks higher. So you can always use the move brush to make adjustments and things. Like adjustments to shapes. So if you want to make a shape look more perfect or more random, you can do that with the move brush. Alright, and then another thing with this mouth. The mouth, when it's open, should be pushed back on the sides. So we'll use the move brush, push back parts of this. Then reduce the size and push back this. So now it's kind of like open. And then the lip can come forward a little bit more. And drag it down to give it more lip. And then move it forward. Move that forward. Alright, so here's where we're at. We can also pinch. This part usually pinches in a little bit. And this part fans out for the nose. This usually doesn't shoot up like that. This is usually more like that. So we're trying to get like the face looking a little bit more anatomically correct, even though it is an egg. Because those little details of realism help sell the abstract character in this case. So we're gonna move the lips, or the parts of the mouth here, like the corners of the mouth. And then I'm gonna move this forward. This is like the cheekbone, essentially. So we're gonna move this back a little bit. So now we have that little detail. And then I'm gonna take this, kind of push parts of this down. Like push parts of this in. Now you could sculpt this in too, you don't have to push it for this part. But for making like fine-tune adjustments, the move tool is really good if you want to keep your overall structure. And if you wanted to do something like this, to kind of give it more of like a jaw, then maybe push this in here on the sides, then pull out this a little bit more to give it more of like a skull shape, even though it is an egg. Give your egg more of a skull shape, just for the face, because really you want the like if you want something like this, like these details can be whatever, because it's like just gonna be filler, but this stuff needs to look like a face, right? If you want it to be a little creepy face thing, so like it can look like a face coming out of an egg. So we'll just kind of adjust some of this, and then I can pop this off a little bit, and fill in parts of the back here, because the skull is larger towards the back slightly. So that'll help sell this as like a face, if that makes sense. Alright, so here's our modified thing. This eggshell could be a little bit more forward. And then one thing I want to do is adjust these. These are too similar, so I'm going to create more of a difference between these. So they're a little bit different. So it doesn't look, so it's like different shapes. So it doesn't look like it's the same thing. Because one thing you want to avoid is like repetition. So like you want these to be different heights. This should be a little bit higher, probably. These should be at like different angles. Just for like visual interest. Alright, so we have this shape here. Let's adjust parts of this a little bit, maybe that somewhat. The overall shape. Parts of this don't look filled out enough. Alright, so I think that's much better than what we started with. It's more clean. And we can always make more adjustments as we go, so anything that like looks strange. So for example, if I wanted the face to appear more human, I can start pushing this in to kind of give it a more human shape while retaining the egg shape as well. I'm just pushing in parts of this here. So when you look at it from the front, it almost reads like a human face, but it's still like this weird egg thing. Then we can like adjust these somewhat. Alright, so here's where we're at right now. In the next video, we'll continue refining the face and then start getting into like some of the shell details. And then also add like pieces of shell and like a little stand for it, as if it were like a plastic figure or something. Just so we can have something cool to check out. So that's it for this one. Definitely like and subscribe if you enjoyed this or found this useful. Also drop a comment, let me know what you think, and let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next one.